Hello everybody, Mrs. Bullen here. This week we're going to take a look at standard 30, surface area and volume of prisms. And if you look at our guided notes, you'll see that there are actually 4 different prisms that we will calculate the surface area and volume for. So I will do 4 separate videos, one for each type. So for this first video, we're just going to look at triangular prisms, meaning that the bases are triangles. So when you consider here, you can see that we've got a triangle. It kind of looks like you have a triangle on the left and a triangle on the right. So your bases are triangles, and then you're stacking those triangles. Like right there would be your height, how much you're stacking them. And you can think back to last week when we worked with the cylinders. With the cylinders, our base was a circle. So you either had a circle on the top and bottom or a circle on the left and right, and then you could see how much your circle was being stacked. So same idea here, except for it's no longer a circle that's your base. Now we have a triangle. We do have 2 formulas to come up with, a surface area formula and a volume formula. And we can use this figure to talk about it. Let's do surface area first. So for surface area, again, you're wrapping the outside of the figure. And if you think back to cylinders, for that formula, we started with our height times our circumference, and that was to take care of wrapping around the figure this way. And the reason we did circumference is because our base was a circle. Well, now our base is a triangle, and you would not find circumference of a triangle. Instead, you would find perimeter of a triangle. Perimeter means you would add up all the sides. So we're going to do height times perimeter. And next to this H, I'm going to put a little star, and I will explain why. So I would like you to put this star here. I'll often call it H star. The H star, if you look at your figure, is what I highlighted here in orange. This is your true height, how much it's being stacked, your height of the prism. And in just a moment here, it will make sense why I'm labeling this H star. So we could label this H star is height of prism, and we said the P is perimeter. So we're starting off the same way as we did with the cylinder formula. That was height times circumference. Here we're doing height times perimeter, so that would be wrapping around the figure. But then you have to consider that there's like a top and bottom or a left and right. So your base here is the triangle, and there's 2 of them. In this figure, it looks like there's one on the left and one on the right. So we have to do plus 2 base, and we can make a note here that this base is what's being stacked. What's being stacked. And in this case, we can see triangles are being stacked, right? So height, your true height of the figure, times the perimeter, plus 2 times your base. We should make a note about our base formula, right? We mentioned perimeter, you would add up the sides. What would your base formula be? That's like if you're trying to find this area inside the triangle. Well, for the circle, we found area of the circle and we did pi r squared. Because our base is now a triangle, you need to think back to last trimester. What was the formula we learned for area of a triangle? And there were a few different ways you could write it. The way that I taught my students was 1/2 base times height. Some students might have learned base times height and then divide it by 2. If you're using your calculator, you could do 0.5 times base times height. But this gives you the area of your triangle, which again, that's your big B, what's being stacked. So that would be your surface area formula. This is me labeling every part of it. It'll make more sense when we actually dive into an example. But we also need to come up with the volume formula. And our volume formula is actually the same volume formula we used for cylinders, where we just took our base and we multiplied it by our height, because volume is as if you're filling the inside of the figure. Notice again, when I did base times height for my volume, I'm putting this little star here because this is your true height, how much it is being stacked. I do not want you to get your height of the figure, how much it is being stacked, confused with this height. Do you see how there are 2 H's? This is height of the prism, height of the figure. And this is just the little h here when we're just doing our scratch work for area of the triangle. So again, if you in your formulas did not note these stars, I would add these stars and it will make more sense when we jump into example A. All right, let's look at example A. So in example A, the first thing I recommend is to emphasize your figure. So you can see I've got a triangle in the front, triangle in the back, and then how much they are being stacked is this 1 mile here. So right away you can tell how much it's being stacked. My true height, my H star, is this 1 mile. So I would label that right away. Try to keep my formulas there so we can see our formulas. And just like with cylinders, we did some scratch work, right? For cylinders, we found circumference of the circle, and we also found our big B, which was area of the circle. I'm going to do the same thing with these prisms, except for I'm not going to do circumference. We already talked about how you can't find circumference of a triangle. Instead, we need to use perimeter of a triangle. So the first piece of scratch work I'll do, I'll say, what's my perimeter of my base? And again, you can just look at one of them. So if I'm looking at this being my base, this triangle, for perimeter, that means you would add up the 3 sides in a triangle. So I have one side that is 3, one side that is 5, one side that is 4. So I'll do 3 plus 5 plus 4 to get 12. So my perimeter, again, you just need to do it for one of the triangles, is 12. I also need to find big B for base, or that means area of the triangle. So again, you're trying to figure out what is this flat area inside the triangle. And we know our formula from last trimester for area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. So I'm going to do 1/2. My base and my height in the triangle, and this is very important, are where they meet at a right angle. So like right there would be your right angles. So the 2 sides that form the right angle, that would be your base and your height of the triangle. So looking at this, my base and my height would be 3 and 4. It doesn't matter which one you say is the base, which one you say is the height, because you're simply multiplying them here. So you could use your calculator. You could type 0.5 times 3 times 4, or you could just say 3 times 4 is 12, and you're taking half of 12. So my base is 6. So I did some scratch work here, and again, I was only looking at one triangle. I'm just looking at one triangle to find its perimeter by adding up all the sides, and to find its base area by using my formula for area of a triangle. I'm done with my scratch work, so I have all the parts I need, and now I'm just going to look at my surface area and volume formulas and plug in the different parts. So I'll start with surface area. Surface area equals my H star, my true height, I labeled as 1. That's how much it's being stacked. So 1 times my perimeter, and we said our perimeter is 12. So that's wrapping around the figure when I do my height of the prism times the perimeter. But then I have like a left and a right side, so I have to do plus 2 big B, plus 2 base, and my base we said is 6. So plus 2 times 6. And you can either do this in your head, chunk this up and do it in your calculator. If you're using a fancy calculator and you're using parentheses, you can do it all in one piece. But when you do this, you should get 24. And because it is surface area, we can see the units on our figure are miles, and it should be square miles because it's surface area. Last thing we need to do is find the volume. Volume is the easier formula. It's just base times height. So my base, we found it to be 6. My height, again, is my H star. How much is this triangle being stacked? It's being stacked for 1 mile. So here I'm just doing 6 times 1. And volume is always units cubed. So I should have cubic miles there. So there would be my surface area and volume answers for this triangular prism. At this time, go ahead and pause the video and see what you can come up with for you try 1. All right, let's see how you did on you try 1. So in this figure, I have a triangle on the top and bottom, and it's being stacked. The true height is 6 inches. So I found the perimeter and the base first as my scratch work. Perimeter, I was adding up the 3 sides of the triangle. Base, I was doing 1/2 base times height to find the area of the triangle. And actually my perimeter and base ended up being the same measurements as in the example. So then I go to plug those into my surface area and volume formulas, and you can see my answers here. At this time, you can go ahead and watch the second video, which covers trapezoidal prisms.